Yeah, so namaste and a very warm welcome again. And as Vasu said, we are going to, the topic for today's talk is the phantom called the ego. And the talk is based on the 24th and 25th shlokas of Sat Darshanam, 40 verses on reality, composed by Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi. So at the outset, it is always wonderful to offer our pranams to the Sadgurus who illumine our paths, to the Sadgurus who inspire us. So I also offer my pranams at the lotus feet of Sri Ramana Maharshi, on whose Saddarshanam this talk is based, Sri Narasimha Prabhuji, who is guiding me on the path of Atma Vichara, Sri Adi Shankaracharya, whose legacy on Advaita Vedanta inspires millions of people even today. So let us begin by chanting together. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Asatoma Satkamaya. Please do join me as we invoke the grace of the Sadgurus. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us offer our pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi and all the enlightened masters of wisdom who illumine our paths. May their grace, which surrounds us at all times, establish us in the self. So it's wonderful to have like-minded seekers like you, jnanis like you, gathered in a wonderful satsang like this. And I feel truly blessed to be part of the satsang with all of you. It is customary when we are studying slokas which don't come in the beginning of a composition to look at the context, right? When we understand the context, then we understand the specific meaning that Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi is trying to tell us through the slokas 25 and 26. So let us just look at the previous two shlokas, what has Bhagwan said. So Bhagwan just told us in the previous two shlokas, which I think we took up a month ago. In that shloka, Bhagwan said, Supreme Being, the Supreme Being, that is pure consciousness, illumines the mind, lights up the mind. How does it light it up? Like a sun in a clear sky, like a summer sun in a clear sky. Okay, and this light shines within the mind unseen. Though it is there all the time, it powers the mind. We don't see it. We kind of ignore it. So the previous talk was actually titled That Which We Ignore. Though the self is illumining the mind, though it is shining very brightly within the mind, we are not giving attention to it. We are not aware of it. We are instead focusing our attention on the appearance. What is the appearance? Our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, our beliefs. because we are identifying with our thoughts and feelings. We are identifying with the self-image made of the body, mind, and intellect. So we are ignoring the substratum, the bright, luminous self, which is actually powering the body, mind, and intellect. So Bhagavan told us in the previous two shlokas, turn the mind inwards. The mind is always turned outwards, right? To the objects around us, to our relationships, to our roles. And then if it turns inwards, it only focuses on thoughts and emotions. So Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi is saying, yes, go beyond that. Penetrate beyond the layer of thoughts and emotions and turn it inwards. That is the only way in which you can merge it with consciousness, with the self. It is the only way of seeing God. You can see there are quotes around seeing. Why? Because I am the self. So I cannot see the self. I cannot see my own eyes except through a mirror. Therefore, if we equate God to self, which Advaita does, and Atma to God, Atma is equal to God, is equal to Brahman, is equal to self, then the only way of seeing God is being God. Bhagavan has often said that you cannot see God, you can only be God. Then Bhagavan continues to say, the body does not say I. Does the body at any point of time say I? No. In deep sleep, do we ever say I didn't exist? The body is not there in deep sleep. There is no limitation in deep sleep. But when we wake up, we never say I did not exist in deep sleep. Therefore, there is a witness, there is a continuous substratum of awareness which exists through our three states. So it is that which is the true I. Only when the I rises does everything else rise. So consciousness is ever existent through our three states, but only when the mind wakes up. When the ahankara or ego wakes up. What is ahankara? The identification with the body, mind, and intellect. The minute I wake up, when I once again identify with the body, mind, and intellect, the world arises for me. In deep sleep, neither the world nor the body, mind, and intellect existed. There was pure existence, pure consciousness. The mind was dormant, the intellect was dormant, but when they woke up, then the world also arose. Therefore, Bhagavan is saying, with a keen intellect, a very sharp intellect, Viveka should be extremely sharp and subtle. Then Ramana says, turn that intellect inwards, ask, who am I? And find out the source of this I, the small self. From where is it arising? So that is what Ramana has told us in the previous two shlokas. Before I begin the actual shlokas we are going to study today, I wanted to share each time I'm trying to share a snippet, a glimpse of one of the wonderful devotees of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi, who got established in the self through his grace and through their ardent Shraddha, we can say, in following the teachings of their Sadguru. So today we are going to look at Janaki Mata. Maybe we have never heard of her. I don't know. Or maybe we have read about her. So Janaki Mata, about her, Swami Shivananda of Rishikesh, he has authored a book on women saints of India, and he has actually included Janaki Mata also in the book. And he says she was one of the great saints of India, was always immersed in thoughts of her Sadguru. So who was Janaki Mata? Before she came to Bhagwan, she was a mystic in the sense of she was already having Kundalini experiences. She was already having many supernormal experiences. Deities would appear before her, and she could converse with deities like Krishna or Rama. So these were all experiences. As we know, Bhagavan always says the truth lies beyond experience, because even experience is at the level of the mind. So Janaki Mata had come to a stage in her life. She was married to a doctor who was actually a widower before her marriage, and he had two children. And Janaki was very loving and compassionate. She married the widower. She had refused many other connections that came to her. Many proposals came for her hand, but she had refused all of them. And when the wife of this doctor passed away, leaving behind two small children, she said, I will marry that doctor, though he was much older than her. And she said, I want to give a mother's love to those two children. So Janaki uh, was going from place to place because the doctor's job, her husband's job, necessitated that he move from one place to another every few years. It was a transferable job. So by it so happened, of course, through divine providence, uh, her husband was transferred to Tiruvannamalai. And at that point in her spiritual sadhana, Janaki had started getting tired, or she had become dissatisfied with her spiritual experiences. Yes, she could see deities. Yes, she had many wonderful experiences because of her Kundalini sadhana. But she started feeling even this comes and goes. The deity comes and the deity goes. The Kundalini experience happens. I feel so ecstatic for some time. Then after that, once again, it doesn't last. That ecstasy fades after some time. So I want something more permanent. And she had read the shloka in the Bhagavad Gita that said, if you follow your dharma, whatever duty, whatever responsibility has been given to you in this lifetime, if you follow it diligently, then I will come before you as your Sadguru. So she was now hungering for the love and guidance of a Sadguru. And she came to Tiruvannamalai. The very first darshan of Bhagavan, she knew this is my Sadguru. But she was hesitant to talk to Bhagavan in the darshan hall. So many others would be sitting there. She felt shy. How will I go and talk to Bhagavan about all the conflicts in my mind? Is it still okay to be a grihastha? Being a, does is it is my the fact that I have become stagnant in my spiritual path? Is it because I am a grihastha, because I am married, and because I have to take care of my family? Is that a hurdle on my spiritual path? Why is it that I'm not moving forward? Why have I stagnated in my progress? So she wanted to ask Bhagwan all these questions, but she was shy to speak in front of others about all this. So one day, Bhagwan used to go for a walk every day. So when he was going for his walk, she went behind the Goshala where she knew that Bhagwan will be coming. And she met Bhagwan behind the Goshala, and she told him, she poured her heart out, all her doubts, all her questions, her devotion, her surrender, everything she offered to Bhagwan. Then Bhagwan said, yes, you are a grihastha, you are a housewife. Fulfill all your obligations as a wife. Don't worry. fulfill all your responsibilities towards your husband, towards your children, and leave the task of your spiritual fulfillment to me. Said there is nothing wrong with having a body, using the body to carry out your responsibilities. It is the Dehatma Buddhi. What is Dehatma Buddhi? I am the body, that strong identification we have with the body. Bhagavan said it is that should be discarded. You don't have to, sannyasa or vairagya doesn't mean you have to give up your family or your home physically and go away somewhere. It only means vairagya, true vairagya is only giving up the notion or the belief of I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect. That has to be dropped. Everything else in life, all your responsibilities, you have to continue fulfilling. So he told her, you are the limitless self always, even now you are the limitless self. And he said, don't worry, I am with you. And he initiated Janaki into self-enquiry. So till now, Janaki had thought that indulging in all the psychic powers that had come to her through her sadhana, that was the ultimate in spirituality. So she would crave for vision, she would crave for experiences, and she paid a lot of importance to all this. But Bhagavan said, let those go. Don't worry about all that. That is still at the level of the mind. Instead, turn your mind even beyond experiences. Turn it towards the self by asking, who am I? So she started practicing self-enquiry very, very diligently. After a few years, her husband was transferred to different places. Still, she kept in touch with Bhagavan. She would visit the ashram periodically. She continued her sadhana. She went beyond her psychic powers and got established in the self. In fact, after the Mahasamadhi of Bhagavan, when a shrine was built and a linga was, we have seen, if you have gone to Ramana ashram, you would have seen the linga that has been installed over the Samadhi of Bhagavan. So normally, when we install a deity in a temple, a Mahatma is invited to come and do the Kumbhabhisheka of the deity, or even to touch and infuse the deity with power. So for this linga, Lingabhisheka, this Janaki Mata, by then she was called Janaki Mata because she herself was a guru to so many disciples, guiding them on the path of self-enquiry, exactly teaching them whatever she had learned from her own master. So she was invited by the ashram, Ramana ashram, and she came and actually did the Lingabhisheka over the Samadhi of Bhagavan. So this is the story of Janaki Mata. We have taken this up because it is very relevant. We will see how it is relevant as we go through the shlokas that we have taken up for today. So shloka number 24, let us lead and follow while chanting this. Deho na janati sato na janma, Deho na janati sato na janma, Deha pramano anya udeti madhye, Deha pramano anya udeti madhye, Aham kriti granthi vibandha sukshma, Aham kriti granthi vibandha sukshma, Sharira cheto bhava jivanama, Sharira cheto bhava jivanama. So this shloka is mostly about the mind. What is Bhagavan saying? Bhagavan says, Deho na janati. The body by itself is inert. Only when it is powered by the self, it becomes active. So the body does not know what is the truth. Sato na janma. Sato. Sato is consciousness, the self. The self has no birth, no janma. It is beyond birth. It is unborn. It has been existing forever. It will continue to exist forever. It is eternal, right? So, deho na janati sato na janma. The body is inert and it does not know the truth. The consciousness, which is the truth, has no birth. It is unborn. Deha pramano anya udeti madhye. Between consciousness and the body, between them, anya, within the confines of the body, deha pramano, within the limitations or the boundaries of the body, anya udeti madhye, another is born in between them. Between which? Between the consciousness and the body. What is this called? This thing which is born between the body and consciousness is known as ahankara or ego. It is also known as granthi or knot because it ties them together. It is the connection between the body and consciousness. Consciousness cannot directly interact with matter. So it needs something subtler. With gross matter, consciousness cannot interact. Therefore, we have this knot, this bond, this connection made up of subtler matter called the knot, which binds them together. Granthi means knot. Vibandha, it is also the bondage or bonding. Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body, because it is made up of subtle matter. Cheto, Chitta. Chitta is mind. Bhava, that which is always becoming. Mind, what does the mind do? It keeps on postponing happiness, right? So that is why it is called Bhava. We will also explore each one of these a little more in detail. Jivanama, it is also called Jiva, the individual self, small self. So these are all the different names: ego, knot, bondage, subtle body, mind, and becoming, and individual self. These are all different names for that which is born between the consciousness and the body within the boundary of the body. So the shloka which we just chanted was composed by Sri Ganapati Muni when he translated Ulladu Narpadu. Ulladu Narpadu is 40 verses on reality, composed by Bhagwan in Tamil. So Sri Ganapati Muni, who was an ardent devotee of Bhagwan, he was also a great Sanskrit scholar. So he translated Ulladu Narpadu into Darshanam in Sanskrit. So the translation of what we just read, of what we just chanted is, the body is insentient. The self is never born. Within the body's boundary, an I rises between the body and the self. This has many names: ego or aham, knot of matter or granthi, bondage or bandha, subtle body or sukshma sharira, mind or chitta, becoming or bhava, and individual self or jiva. Now the same Ulladu Narpadu has been translated by another devotee, Sri Lakshman Sharma, into Sanskrit and English. So we have not taken up his Sanskrit translation because it is not very conducive to chanting, but we have taken up the English translation that he has made, where he says, the inert body cannot say I. Real consciousness has no beginning. Between them appears another I, limited to the body. This is the mind, the knot between consciousness and the inert body. Conditioned existence, the ego, bondage, and the subtle body. This is verily the nature of the so-called self. So ego. Why is the mind called the ego? What is the ego? We often think ego is pride. We think ego is arrogance. But actually, ego is identifying with a limited existence. That is the ego. When the minute the thought or the belief arises that I am the body, mind, and intellect, that is called the ego. So last time we looked into what is called Chida Bhasa, the reflection of the self in the intellect. There is a slide further on also to revisit that. So this Chida Bhasa, the reflection of the self in the, it's like the sun getting reflected in a pot of water. So that Chida Bhasa is not really different from the self. But instead of identifying with the self, if it identifies with the vehicle, with the container, then it becomes the ego. If it identifies with the self, it is the witness. Bondage. Unless there is a knot, there is a connection. Directly, we already said, consciousness cannot interact with the body. So we have this connection in the form of a subtle body, which infuses every cell of the gross body. So we have the unconscious mind, we have the conscious mind, and this is actually controlling all the functions of the body. Then we have what is called the individual self, which is reborn again and again, because the individual self feels inadequate. The minute I think I am the body, mind, and intellect, I become so limited, I become so small. The world is separate from me. Everybody else is separate from me. God is separate from me. Therefore, I am incomplete. I feel helpless. So many things happen in life which I cannot control. The minute I identify with BMI, body, mind, and intellect. So what happens? I start having desires. If I get that, then I will be happy. Bhava, becoming. That is where becoming also comes. Have you said something like this? I have heard people say that. Once I retire, I will learn music. I've been wanting to learn music for so long. I will learn music. I will go to art class. I used to say, one day I will join art class and start painting. Then about 3 or 4 years ago, I said suddenly, why am I postponing this? Let me join an art class. Let me start painting. So I started painting. But each time we keep postponing, right? And we say, once my daughter is married or once my son is married, I'll be so relaxed. After I retire, I'll be so relaxed. I'll have time to do so many things. Then I'll be happy. If I get a bonus, I'll be happy. If I get a promotion, I'll be happy. So bhava, 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 becoming, becoming. Even enlightenment, we put into the genre of becoming. We say, one day I will be enlightened. But Bhagavan says, Vedanta says, Arey, you are already the self. You just are not aware that you are the self. That's all. All that needs to happen is you have to get established in the awareness of your true nature. But even that, we are not ready to believe in that or accept that. So we say, I am so small, still I have to grow, I have to evolve, I have to mature. Then slowly, if I go on doing this sadhana for a long time, enlightenment is very difficult. It takes millions of lifetimes. So one day, somewhere, sometime, I'll become enlightened. Bhava, becoming. So even enlightenment, even self-knowledge, we put into the category of becoming. We postpone happiness. We postpone self-knowledge also. So because we keep postponing, and we feel incomplete, one desire after the other desire. We are in search of happiness. If I do this, I'll become happy. If I get this, I'll become happy. If I achieve this, I will become happy. If that person loves me, then I will be happy. But each time happiness comes, we all know what does it do? It evaporates. It goes away, right? Then the next desire, then the next desire. So, with desire, with action, with the feeling that I want, I am doing something. Why? Because I want happiness. So, doership, enjoyership. I am doing something, I am the doer, and I am entitled to enjoy the result of that action, enjoyership. Kartritva, bhoktritva. So, those two things, continuously identifying with the doership and enjoyership, then we get into the cycle of karma. Whatever we do will bring a fruit of action. In enjoying that fruit of action, good or bad, we generate more karma that brings us more fruits. So it goes on. So we are born again and again to enjoy these fruits of action. That is the jiva, the one who is reborn again and again and again, because he is the limited self, he is the individual self. As long as we feel limited, we cannot break through the shackles of karma. Only when we have self knowledge, we understand that we are infinite and eternal, then only we can drop the shackles of karma. So that is what Bhagavan is saying through this shloka. I was just remembering this story when I was looking at the shloka, okay? Because it is talking about the mind. The shloka is talking about the mind, and indirectly Bhagavan is saying you can use the mind if you turn it outwards or you focus it on your thoughts and emotions and you identify with your body, mind, and intellect in this way, then the mind binds you, right? But if you turn it inwards to its source, to consciousness, then the same mind also liberates you. The same mind, you suddenly realize there is no mind, there is only the self. So, in this story, there was a scholar, a very great scholar. This scholar had so much knowledge. He had studied all the four Vedas, he had studied all the Upanishads. Anything he could quote, whatever he wanted, he could quote without referring to any book. So, very great scholar. But still, he was not satisfied. So, he had heard about a great Mahatma, an enlightened being, in a different place, far away from his own place of where he lived. So he thought, let me go and meet that Mahatma. Maybe he will tell me what it is that I am missing. So he went. He went to that great Mahatma and he told him, look, I have done all this. I can quote from any scripture you want. I have studied Brahma Sutras. I have studied so many scriptures. But please teach me something. Please teach me something that will help me on my spiritual journey. So the Mahatma said, actually, I have nothing to teach you, but there is a small shop in this town. We say Mule Angdi, the corner shop. Still, fortunately, we do have these corner shops, even though we have this big chain supermarkets and all that. In most localities, there is the small grocer's shop. Something gets over, you run there and bring salt or sugar or something that you need urgently. So he said, there is a shop like that, so near my house. So please go to that corner shop. And there the shopkeeper will probably be able to teach you something that you need very, very badly, something very important, very crucial. Now the scholar is, he's perplexed. I have read so much. I thought this Mahatma will teach me something, but he is telling me to go to one shopkeeper of a small store. Okay, let me go and see. So he goes. Now the shopkeeper is there. He's very busy, and there are plenty of customers. He's giving them rice, ragi, all the other things, that essentials that they have come for. He's distributing it, selling it all to them. He has a helper also. So the scholar asked the shopkeeper, see, this Mahatma has sent me. He said, you have something very crucial to tell me. Shopkeeper is also puzzled. He says, sir, you are so great. What can I teach you? Anyway, you have come to my shop. A great person like you have come to my shop. You please sit down. It's very hot. You please sit here. I will give you some water. Have some water. Sit for some time. Relax. Then you can go. So the scholar goes and he sits there. He's sipping a glass of water and he's watching what is happening in the shop. Then a man comes with a big list, written list of all the groceries he wants, and he gives it to the grocer. The grocer immediately hands it over to the boy who is helping him. Then the scholar understands the shopkeeper cannot even read. He cannot even read or write. That is why he is asking the boy to read from the list. Why did that Mahatma send me to this illiterate shopkeeper? And as he is looking around the shop, he sees one shelf containing all these different colored jars. You can see it on the slide, right? Pink, orange, yellow, green, blue. All these jars are there. And he just asks the shopkeeper, why is every jar a different color like that? So the shopkeeper says, in that red jar, I keep chilies. In the yellow jar, I keep turmeric. In the green jar, I keep cardamom. So he goes on explaining. Then the scholar says, that is all fine. You didn't tell me what is there in that blue jar. I can see one very pretty blue jar over there. What is there in that blue jar? So the shopkeeper says, sir, in that blue jar, Krishna is there. What? Yes, sir. In the blue jar, Krishna is there. Now the scholar says, how can you say Krishna is there in the jar? Okay, Krishna likes blue color, the jar is blue. I agree with that. But how can Krishna be inside the jar? What have you kept in it? Show me. So the shopkeeper takes out the jar and he opens it, unscrews it, and he shows it to the scholar. The jar is absolutely empty. He says, this is empty. How are you saying Krishna is there? So then the shopkeeper says, only when it is empty, Krishna can be in the jar, sir. If I keep the jar full, if my mind is full always, how will Krishna come and sit inside? So I keep this jar there to remind myself, I have to keep my mind empty. I have to keep it quiet. Only then Krishna will come and occupy my mind. If I fill it up with all kinds of junk, how will he come? Now the scholar understood. This is why the Mahatma sent me here. Yes, I have acquired a lot of knowledge, but I've got just attached to all that scholarship. I've filled my mind with scholarship. More than the scholarship, what is blocking me is my identification with my self-image as a scholar. I've become very attached to that image. I am a scholar. And that strong identification is not allowing my mind to go beyond that. I should have used all the scriptures like a pointing finger. All the scriptures are pointing at the self, at Atman, at Brahman. But I have used it to aggrandize my own importance, the importance of this small individual. Instead, I should be focusing on Brahman or Atman, at which all the scriptures are pointing. And then he fell at the feet of the shopkeeper and walked away from there because he understood what was lacking in his sadhana and what he had to do. So even at Janaki Mata, if we see, even psychic powers, even deities appearing in front of her, all that was actually, she was attached to the experience. She was attached to the image of, I am a great devotee, therefore God appears in front of me. I am a great Kundalini sadhak, therefore these experiences are happening to me. And they are giving me importance. So that attachment to experiencing the ecstasy, experiencing the joy, even though it is short-lived, even though it is only at the level of the mind, that was also blocking her. So that was like a granthi. It binds. So just like the scholar Janaki also, when she moved beyond this into the zone of self-inquiry, turning her mind to the pointing to what the finger was pointing at. All these experiences actually come to encourage us on the path. They're like these small chocolates we give a child. The child does homework. Initially, when my children were very small, I would say, do this homework, I'll give you one chikki or some karat kadlekai or peanuts or something. So you encourage them to do things well. Then that becomes a habit with them. Then you don't have to give all those small rewards anymore. So if you get attached to the rewards and we forget the important part, that is self knowledge or Atma Vichara, then we stagnate on the path. So what does Munda Copanishad say about this? There is a very nice shloka in the Munda Copanishad that says, Vidyate hridaya grantihi chidyante sarva samshayaha क्षीयन्ते छास्य कर्माणि tasmin drishte paravare. So tasmin drishte paravare. When we see him or consciousness as both the cause and the effect. So consciousness is not just the cause, it is also the effect. The mind is also consciousness. Mind is not different from consciousness. Mind is not different from the self. When we focus on the content of the mind rather than on the substratum, which is awareness, then it works as bondage, as a granthi, as a knot. But when we focus on the substratum, the mind is not an enemy. The mind is none other than the self. But it is only the content of the mind. If we focus on the content of the mind, we are bound. If we focus on the substratum, then the knot of the heart is untied, says the Upanishad. All doubts are resolved. Chidyante sarva samshayaha. All doubts are resolved. Vidyate hridaya grantihi. When the knot of the heart is untied. Kshiyante chasya karmani. All the karma of such a seeker is consumed. It is burnt up. When he realizes that the cause and effect are one and the same, there is only consciousness. Everything is an appearance on consciousness, and only consciousness exists. So when we understand that, when a seeker realizes that, then all doubts are resolved. So now I want to ask all of you a question. I know you are muted, you won't be able to unmute and talk, but do you read the newspaper? Do you read
Do you want me to unmute?
No, it's fine. So I'm sure all of you read the newspaper or you read books or even maybe on Kindle, you're reading something. So are we reading the newspaper or are we reading the print on the newspaper? When we are reading the newspaper or reading a book, where is our attention focused? It is focused on the print, right? On the content, looking at the print. We have forgotten about the substratum called the paper. Without the paper, there can be no print. Without the Kindle screen, there can be no writing appearing on it. But we forget about the paper, we forget about the screen. We are only looking at the content, we are looking at the appearance. Or when we watch a movie, we forget about the screen, we are caught up with the images that are appearing on the screen. So, this Upanishad is saying, if you focus on the substratum, if you focus on the paper instead of the print, if you focus on the screen instead of the movie, if you focus on the substratum of awareness, on the witness, the one who knows that thoughts have appeared, the one who knows that thoughts are there or not there, the one who is aware that there is anger, the one who is aware that there is happiness. Instead of identifying with the thought itself, with the emotion itself, and saying, I am unhappy, I am happy, I am sad, etc., if we can look at who knows that there is a happy thought, who knows that there is a sad thought. So we focus on the substratum, awareness, the knower, the witness. Then we are free. So it is as simple as that, says the Munda Copanishad. Then all your doubts are resolved, all your karma is also destroyed. It is a permanent solution that happens when you shift awareness, when you shift your identity. Instead of thinking there is cause and effect, you realize the mind is also a manifestation of the self. The body is also a manifestation of the self. You regard it as the self. Then automatically the knot is untied, says the Upanishad. So revisiting a slide which we looked at in the previous session, this is the Chida Bhasa. So this is a common example analogy given. There is a sun and the sun is shining brightly and there are several pots of water over there. You can see that, right? So the sun is reflected in every pot. So that is the Chida Bhasa, the reflection of the sun in the water which is there inside the pot. So water is the mind or intellect. The pot represents the body, and the reflection, individual, it represents individual consciousness. The reflection represents individual consciousness. Now, that mind in which is enlivened by consciousness, even the mind is inert if it is not enlivened by consciousness. When the mind is enlivened by consciousness, it has a choice. All of us have a choice. At every moment, we have a choice. What is the choice? We can identify with the universal consciousness, the self, or we can identify with the water and the pot, which is the mind and the body. So the problem is we have started identifying with the mind and the body, with the water and the pot. So immediately we become jiva, we become limited, and mind becomes a knot. It is a knot that is binding the self to the body. At the same time, if we are turning the mind only towards the mind and the body and the outer world, it becomes a bondage. It binds us to this identity. That is the bondage. Bondage is nothing else. Bondage is getting bound by the identity. But if we turn the mind, same mind, towards the self and we say, who am I? Then the attention moves from the content of the mind, from the thought and the emotions and the limited identity. It moves beyond that, turns inward, and it goes to the self. So shall we do a small bit of self-inquiry? So you can just close your eyes, keep your spine straight, close your eyes lightly. Just be. If your mind is quiet, just allow it to be. If a thought appears in the mind, then just ask, for whom is the thought? It is for me. Who am I? The mind becomes quiet. Don't give any ready-made answers. I am the Brahman, I am Atman, I am Satchitananda. No. When you question the mind by asking, who am I? You're actually questioning the identity with the BMI. So when we say, who am I? The mind becomes quiet. Just stay there. If another thought arises, do the same thing. If there are no thoughts, just be. Whenever you like, you can open your eyes. We'll go on to the next sloka also soon. So every thought that arises in the mind is used like a vehicle to travel to the self. Self is the substratum to become aware of the self, because self is everywhere all the time, right? So when I use the thought to ask for whom is the thought, and I own up and I say it is for me, then I say, who am I? When I do that with some intensity, the mind is quiet. So that is the substratum. Now I am aware of the substratum. I am not focusing on the appearance, the content. So this is how we do self-inquiry, how we turn the mind inwards. It is simple, but it is very effective. And it loosens the identity with the body, mind, and intellect. The more we do it, the more we get established in the state of awareness, which is the self. So we'll go on to Shloka 25. Let us read and follow while chanting it. रूपोद्भवो रूपततिप्रतिष्ठो रूपोद्भवो रूपततिप्रतिष्ठो रूपाशनद्भूतगृहीतरूपः रूपाशनद्भूतगृहीतरूपः स्वयं विरूप स्वविचारकाले स्वयं विरूप स्वविचारकाले धावति अहङ्कार पिशाच एषः धावति अहङ्कार पिशाच एषः. So here Ramana is saying Rupodbhavo. Where is this ego or the mind? From where is it born? The outward turned mind, the mind that is identifying with itself, with the body, with the intellect and the mind that believes it is itself, that is the ego. And Ramana is asking, from where is this born? And he answers, he says, Rupodbhavo, it is born from a form. We will see what form. And then he continues, he says, Rupa Tati Pratishto. Rupa Tati means a whole multitude of forms, many, many, many forms. Pratishto, it is holding on. It is not only born from a form, it is holding on to a multitude of forms. Rupashanaha, it is feeding on forms. Ashanaha is feeding on forms. Rupa is form. So it is feeding on forms and Dhuta Grihita Rupaha. It is capturing forms, Grihita Rupaha, giving a house to something, Grihita. So it is capturing this form and then Dhuta. It is also discarding them. It is also abandoning them. First it captures a form, then it abandons that form. Swayam Virupaha, but it itself, the ego itself, has no form. It is born from a form, it is holding on to a multitude of forms, it is feeding on forms, it is capturing forms and abandoning them. But the irony is, the ego itself has no form, it is Virupaha, it is devoid of form. Swavichara Kale. But when we sit down to ask, at the time when we sit down to ask for self-enquiry, we ask, who are you? Who is this ego? When we say, who am I? That I is not referring to the self. The self with a capital S, the Atma or Brahman. No. We are actually asking the mind, who are you? We are asking the ego. Who is the small I? We are asking that question. So when we ask, who am I? Of the small self, then Dhavati Ahankara. Dhavati, it runs away, it flees. The ego flees. Pishacha Eshaha, just like a ghost. So there is a also, just we have heard of rope and snake example, right? In the same way, there is also ghost and post example in Vedanta. There is a post, there like a lamp post or something. There is a post on the road, pole. So in dusky light, half light, that post is painted white, there is fog around it. We get only glimpses of it. Somebody who is walking on the road may mistake that post for a ghost. Oh, no, there's a ghost over there. Oh my God, somebody save me. And then you shine light on it. And what is there? There is just a post. There is no ghost. So just like this ghost, the ghost which did not exist, it appeared to exist. It it fled, it ran away, it disappeared the minute you shone light on. So like that, this ahankara also flees when you turn the light of Atma Vichara, the very sharp focused searchlight of Atma Vichara. If you turn it towards this ego, you find the ego disappears, it flees just like that ghost fled when the post was revealed. So this is what Bhagavan is saying. So Rupodbhavo, the minute the Chida Bhasa, the minute attention is focused on the form of the body, the subtler form of the mind, the even subtler form of the intellect, the minute we focus our attention on that and we say, I am these, I am the body, mind and intellect, then the ego is born. So it is born from the form of the body. Rupodbhavo. Rupatati pratishto. Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. There are so many bodies. So many bodies. One man died and he went to Yamaloka. So Lord Yama said, come, now I will decide whether you should go to heaven or hell, or let me see your karmic record. The man said, wait. My daughter's marriage was supposed to happen in a week's time. I had to repay some loans. You give me 2 years. I'm not asking for a huge span of time, okay? Just 2 years you give me. I will finish all my responsibilities, then you can recall me. Now this Yama says, is that so? All right, you come with me. So he takes that man to one place where millions of bodies are heaped. There are Chinese bodies, there are American bodies, there are bodies of people born in England, in Africa, in India, male bodies, female bodies. Heaps and heaps and heaps of bodies are there. And Yama tells this man or this jiva who has just died and gone, he tells him, I am ready to give you 2 years extension. Yes, go back, finish your responsibilities. But out of all these heaps of bodies, find the one body that needs to go back to complete responsibilities. You find that from this huge heap, and I will give you 2 years extension. Where will he find it? Millions and millions of bodies, this body is somewhere there. How to look through those bodies and find it? Right? So many lifetimes. It is not about this one lifetime, Bhagavan is saying. This ego, this jiva, it had one body, grihita rupaha. It occupied one body first. Then it captured one body. It lived one lifetime. Then it said, Arey, this body has grown old. I will discard this now. Dhuta. It discarded. So body after body after body, holding on, letting go, holding on, letting go. Rupashanaha. It is going on, feeding on form, one after the other after the other. Right? Swayam virupaha. But if you say, where is the ego? Show me the ego. Can you show? Ego is just a thought. It is a very deep-rooted thought. It is a belief. Belief is a thought. So it's just a deep-rooted belief. How will you show it? It is a notion. It is a concept. I am the body, mind and intellect. It's just that concept. Taken root over lifetimes. It is there. But does it have a form? No form, says Bhagavan. It has no form, but it appears to have a form. So when you sit down for Atma Vichara, Swavichara Kale, and you turn the light of searchlight of Atma Vichara on it by asking, who am I? Then what happens? Dhavati Ahankara. You find there was no Ahankara at all. Mind becomes quiet. We just experienced it, right? Mind becomes quiet. So when the mind becomes quiet, where is Ahankara? We are already the substratum of awareness. We have identified with the substratum of awareness in that pause when the mind has become quiet. Each time again content surfaces, again a thought comes by asking, who am I? Once again we have become substratum of awareness. We are shifting our identity from thought, from the form to the formless, from thought to the substratum of the thought. This is what Bhagavan is saying. So let us read the translations. Ganapati Muni's translation says, apparently born of forms, holding on to a series of forms, feeding on forms, constantly abandoning the forms it captures, itself formless, upon self-enquiry, this ghost called the ego flees. Right? What does Lakshman Sharma say? He says, this phantom without a form, the ego, comes into being taking hold of a form called the body. Keeping hold of the form, it continues to exist. Keeping hold of the form and enjoying sense objects, it greatly waxes in strength. There is an extra point here. So each time the ego gets a sense of enjoyment from sense objects, my identification with the body, mind, and intellect, it goes on increasing. It says, this gives me happiness. Therefore, body, I am the body. Pleasures of the body give me happiness, so I am the body. Pleasures of the mind give me happiness, or this destroys my happiness. Therefore, I am this. Giving up a form at death, it takes hold of a new one. When the truth of it is sought, surely the ego will run away. This is the translation of Lakshman Sharma. So what does the Bhagavad Gita say? Shri Krishna says, Vasansi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naroparani तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णा न्यायानि संयाति नवानि देहि. Krishna says, just as a person sheds worn out garments and wears new ones, in the same way at the time of death, the jiva casts off its worn out body and enters a new one. And the Kathopanishad says, one who attains knowledge of the truth crosses death, but those who do not gain this knowledge will die again and again. So this is what Bhagavan is saying. You want to be free from cycle of samsara? You want to be free from karma and rebirth? The solution is simple. Question who is the ego by asking who am I? Turn the mind, instead of turning it towards BMI and going on strengthening that wrong identity, turn it towards the self and dwell as eternity, Bhagavan says. Simple solution. That is all we need to do. It may not happen instantaneously, but the more and more we do it, the more it happens. So I don't want to go into this example. It's about reincarnation, which I had thought I will go into, but I think we are running short of time. So I will skip the story also. We will offer our pranams at the lotus feet of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Close your eyes for a moment. Let us offer our gratitude to Bhagwan for the amazing clarity that he gives us through his shlokas of Darshanam. May his grace and awareness generated by our self-inquiry establish us in the self.